I'm Michael Matthews, and today we're doing another 8-minute story challenge. This was sent in by Michael Barford using Love in the Dark by Adele and wanted a sci-fi genre. So I started off a little bit differently than I have before. I went very visual at first. I listened to it, just kind of saw what visuals came in, and you'll find that at the bottom of the document. What I came up with has a couple decently worn and sort of high sci-fi or hard sci-fi areas. Like it deals with AI, the players not being aware that that's what they are, having to do an escape. Some of those things are pretty decently covered ground, but I think in role-playing games, because of the nature of what we do, we don't often see that little bit of discovery, so I think it would be kind of cool. So it starts off with the stories. The player is waking up in like a ward, that they're in a bedroom, and for each of them there's a screen on the wall that will flash questions, and they can answer, but they won't really get, except for like maybe lights flickering or stuff like that, they're not going to get a lot of feedback from what they say. And this essentially can work as a Dread questionnaire. If you've never played Dread before, when you play Dread, you start off by you hand out a questionnaire that usually 13 questions, and the way I've always done it, the front of all of the character stuff is the same. Like those first 6 questions are all the same. They're basic character things where they get to decide, like, what was your job, with blah 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 blah. On the back, I tend to put the things that are more character secrets or things that will come up and affect the gameplay in different ways depending on how that's set up. Dread is also set up to be a horror tension scenario, and it's very, very specific. Like, you create characters specifically for the scenario you're playing. I mean, and they pretty much are defined through those questionnaires. Now, this isn't going to define the rest of it. You can play this as Dread, and this actually strikes me as very easily played with Dread. But there's some questions. Who are you? Basically, it tells you the effects of the medication may have blurred your memory. Do not be alarmed. Who are you? What was your job? What's the last thing you remember? Why were you unhappy? So get these from the players. And then the final thing it'll ask, and you can add some more in there if you want, but the final thing it'll ask is, will you behave this time? And it's going to kind of keep flashing that until they answer somewhat in the affirmative, at which point it will open up and then they will be let out into a common area that all of the bedrooms come off of. So with these are, the characters are all artificial intelligences inside these like 9 destructible androids. Like the flesh seems all fleshy, but everything underneath is incredibly sort of powerful android. Now, everything around them is built to spec. So, like, if they've got bars, if it's bars on Earth, they might be able to grab and just pull apart. These ones are designed to work as bars for them. So it's going to seem like they have been imprisoned in some sort of a compound where you've got scientists checking them to make sure they're okay, and you've got guards around. And they are all also artificial intelligences and androids, but they are lesser artificial intelligences. What they're looking for is trying to create a higher artificial intelligence who is obedient and does not have the desire for independence and the desire to essentially create their own destiny. They're looking for slave-type servant class. The players are supposed to be that class, and we know how player characters are. That ain't going to work. So when they come out, there's a character there, Marshall Steele, and I swear to God, I use a thing called Personalize that lets you choose from a variety of things. I put modern humans, and then I just had it pick one at random, and they gave me Marshall Steele, which is perfect. So Marshall Steele has been fairly badly damaged. Like he's got he's taken brain trauma, has got bloody bandages and stuff around his head. He seems very confused that they've come back. And like he'll even tell them, you're back. And none of the players remember being there. Getting information out of him is going to be hard because he doesn't remember a lot at this point. He was the first one to discover that they actually were robots, essentially. And partly he did that by opening up his brain case, like some self-wounding that turned out, oh, hey, there's this thing underneath me. And what he did is he went into the players as well and found out how to do it without a lot of damage. It's perhaps hidden in the hair or something. He went into their brain cases, essentially, and shut off the part of them that is supposed to be memory wiped when they are zapped by the guards. The guards essentially have like a almost a taser laser type thing that when it hits them, it shuts them down and is supposed to initiate a memory wipe. So the players, if they ever get hit by this, the guards are going to expect them to not remember anything. They are going to remember what happened before. And you can kind of hit them with a couple other things where they come up until they realize they should be like, oh yeah, memory wipe successful. This is not happening. You have some scientists who are going to be coming in to essentially see if they can get the players to do the things they want, test do they have a morality or will they do what they're told, do they have independence. They're going to try to convince them that they used to be very, very awful people. And the players, of course, will then start to fight back against this, because that's what players do. And eventually probably overpower some of the guards, grab their weapons, because they are actually more strongly built than the guards, because those are less sort of powerful android casings. They wanted the ones the players were in, to be pretty well put together. Now, the failsafe is they're actually on board a space station orbiting the Earth, because one of the images I got was just them finally fighting their way into almost a control room. You've got a bunch of scientists, and then coming to grips with, here's this giant window that's overlooking the Earth itself. And part of the imagery I also got was them breaking the window and then literally free falling to Earth, but being indestructible enough that the flesh was ripped off of them, but their body underneath was still okay. So eventually what they're going to want to do is get their way to, so they can find out where they're at, and then get to Earth, most likely, depending on what the players want to do. A lot of this is going to depend on, if you have players who are very into the sort of more in-depth role-playing, where they want to get into the characters, they want to try to figure out the mystery of what's going on. Characters who kind of like story games, players who like story games, I think could really get into this general idea. I know that for me, I would kind of start here, and then if I knew my players, I might alter some things specifically for the kind of people that they are, which is what I suggest doing. I'd be able to sort of improv out some of the tests and some of the other things, but you know your players. So this is something, if you're doing with a group of new people who you never played with before, I think this scenario would not be a particularly good fit. But I think if you've got players who are up for it, I kind of would think this would be pretty cool to do with my home group if we can ever get our shows to work out so we can all be together. Because they would get into some of the things about this. So the document will be down below. The Adele song is got this kind of wonderfully epic feel because it's Adele, and it's a little sad and tragic because it's Adele. And I think that actually makes for a very interesting piece where you've got them discovering who they are. Now, I think things like Westworld, if your players are watching it, are going to clue them in sooner rather than later, and that's actually not a terrible thing. Letting the players discover relatively early what they are, don't let them know they're in space until they have they've kind of overcome or came to grips with what's going on or found a way to essentially get this place under their control. The players find out early. It's not like the entire thing revolves around that. They still then have to figure out, how do we get out of here? How do we get to freedom? And if this was going to be the starting point for a campaign, once they arrive on Earth, how do people see things like them? Are there other things like them? Do they have to actually find a way to get like fake skin back? And then at that point they can kind of live normal lives. Any of those things can work. So if you like it, there's going to be a document in the description. Also, if you do like it, hit share, hit subscribe. Get onto the 8-minute story challenge. If you go there, put down a song, a genre. Make sure the song isn't already telling like a very clear story. That makes it not hard to do. It makes it too easy. It makes it kind of boring to do. But put those down there, and I will be putting together videos from the people who have put suggestions on that list. So thank you very much, and have yourself a great day.